Good evening. The chairman of the ERPIC, fellow panelists and ambassadors, distinguished participants. Today's topic is on the current geopolitical issues in the Eastern Mediterranean region, with focus on energy. And the 25 minutes I have, I'll try to focus on four issues. First, giving a very brief historical background of this region, although most of you are familiar. Then going into the current geopolitical issues. Thirdly, what are the energy issues we are talking about? And finally, see what are the possible scenarios in this region. Being a student of maritime history and also contemporary political and diplomatic events, I have been teaching my students about the importance, the centrality of Mediterranean Sea throughout the known historical period or the recorded period. It has been a theater of great activities: maritime, trade, military activity, and movement of people. Whether it is the Greek or the Roman or the Phoenicians, Jews, Persians, so on and so forth. This eastern part of the Mediterranean has been the hub for the famous Silk Route, all the way from China, Korea, Japan, present-day Taiwan, India, Afghanistan, Central Asia, the Ottoman Empire, present-day Iraq, Syria, terminating at Byblos, Izmir, Gaza, Alexandria, Tripoli, and of course Cyprus being a very important component of this trade route. The second point we have to remember is the two conflicting events, that is conflict and cooperation. Much of this trade activity which involved people around this Eastern Mediterranean region involved periods of conflict, although short, but bulk of it was peaceful cooperation for trade, commerce, exchange of culture, so on and so forth. Coming to the current geopolitical issues, 3-4 points. One is, of course, the current geopolitical issues. Cyprus, unfortunately, being a divided country. Over the last 40 years, although some modest attempts have been made for reconciliation, but nothing concrete has been achieved, only prolonging the agony, suffering, and the pain the two communities have been facing. I believe confidence-building measures are possible, sustainable, and necessary to improve the present climate, which could be for reunification, renewing cooperation, but very essential for improving the standard of living of the people, which has seen deterioration not only here but also in the neighboring areas. Related to this is the need for continuing the process of reconciliation between Turkey and Greece, which was started in late 90s, but halted around 2003 or so. It is also essential to have peace between Syria and Turkey, Israel and Turkey, Palestine and Israel, Israel and Syria, Lebanon and Cyprus, Israel and Lebanon. In fact, like what existed thousands of years ago, a zone of peace and cooperation, the discovery or the potential availability of gas is an opportunity for the entire region, for reviving what existed thousands of years ago. That is peaceful cooperation between the peoples in the eastern Mediterranean region, with Cyprus as the hub. This is what I feel. And to be reinforced by the interest shown by the European Union, the United States, and to a certain extent Russia also, which is going to be an important player. Now, what are the main challenges for this cooperation which I envisage in this region? Obviously, different actors have conflicting foreign policy goals, and it is very difficult to reconcile these conflicting aims and objectives. But what can be initiated is the common minimum program. In most conflict situations, we have the most achievable objective being taken up first, and gradually to reduce tension, work for rapprochement, and eventually to make or strive to make energy as a pillar, the discovery of gas as a pillar for cooperation, peace, and stability. This is a unique and unprecedented opportunity in this region, that is the availability of gas, which can initiate this process. Now, what is this energy we are talking about? Of course, the Cyprus conflict has been on and off of the agenda of the international community for decades, as I mentioned, with nothing worthwhile having been achieved, although there are positive signals from the Turkish Cypriot community. But in recent times, the spotlight has been on Cyprus due to the gas discovery explorations. As I said, this presents significant challenges and add further complexities to the Cyprus dispute. And all of these revolve around the sovereignty of this island state and the balance between the two antagonistic Cypriot communities. And this gas exploration rights and benefits from gas income and revenue could be the first concrete step to bridge this growing gap between the two communities. And later on, go to the second step and see how this will impact the Greek-Turkish foreign policies, because cooperation between these two supporters of the two rival communities is extremely important, because both these actors can sustain and endure peace and bring stability to the eastern Mediterranean region, and also undermine these two aspects. I believe that energy, the gas, can, of course, fortify one player at the cost of the other. There is this option for the Greek Cypriot to tie up with Greece and with Israel to completely ignore the Turkish Cypriot community, Turkey, and so on and so forth. But in my perception, this will only aggravate traditional hostilities in an already perilous geopolitical environment. But what is interesting is it has now ample space for cooperation that can bring absolute gain to all the parties, to Greece, to the Cypriot communities, to Turkey, to Israel, and other parties involved. And in fact, energy unites the prosperity of different political communities while ensuing interdependence, and which can become a major factor for stabilization. So here the key word is interdependence, because Cyprus cannot on its own explore and export gas, either through pipeline, either it needs the cooperation of Greece or Turkey or even Israel. And this could become a factor of stabilization. So politics, instead of reproducing aggravating past rivalries, can be reconceptualized on the basis of yielding emphasis on higher goals of peace, stability, and order that are beneficial for all the parties. And I believe energy which has been discovered can be a game changer, which can boost the reconciliation process, rapprochement between the parties. I also believe that despite current disagreements, mechanisms can and should be created and established to carry forward interdependent networks and enhance energy security in the region, and eventually it may lead to permanent solutions to traditional rivalries in the Eastern Mediterranean region. What is the amount or quantum of gas we are looking at? In fact, Block 12 of the Aphrodite well alone is estimated to have 142 to 227 billion cubic meters. Of course, there are other wells being explored. And if you consider what is needed for Cyprus, the surplus is something like 30 to 100 billion euros are expected alone from this Block 12 well. So in that way, the benefit not only for Cyprus, which is now using oil to generate electricity at high cost, especially after 2011 when the main power plant was destroyed, the conversion to gas would reduce prices, overall prices, and help the economy, especially under the strenuous financial crisis and subsequent rounds of debt downgrading by rating agency for this country. Of course, licensing processes for other promising blocks have been launched, but because of the political uncertainty, the gas export has become a big question mark. In that way, gas exports may enhance security of Cyprus and also of the European Union and the larger international community, and also defend Cyprus and avoid any conflict which may hamper gas supplies to the European Union. Now, from the two communities' point of view, exploration by gas by Cyprus, Turkey and Turkish Cypriots see this as illegal and unacceptable. A response flowing from this denial to accept the sovereignty of Cyprus. That is at the root of the problem. Turkey is critical of the initiative taken by the Greek Cypriot. And I feel that to win over the Turkish Cypriot community, a sympathetic consideration from Cyprus to earmark gas income to them compared to their population could be a beginning. And the most viable option, I feel, is to start the reconciliation process between the two communities and take Turkey as the hub for export of gas to EU and beyond, which will also be appreciated by not only the EU dependent on Russian gas, but also by the United States, which wants to cut down the EU dependence on Russian gas. There are other players, as I mentioned. You have Egypt, you have Israel, you have Lebanon, you have Syria, the continuing turmoil in Syria, and also eventually Palestine, which would be interested. And once this becomes operational between the two and Turkey, I think the other parties would see the benefit from this determination of Cyprus or the Cypriots and Turkey to carry forward this process. In this connection, it is also it also needs some attention to establish energy-rich bizonal state solution between the two parties. I have other ideas about how this can be operationalized with other countries. But coming to the last section of my presentation, what are the future scenarios we are talking about? As I mentioned, the Greek Cypriot, the Turkish Cypriot, Turkey option offers the most feasible one. Number one, it will initiate the reconciliation process, given the optimism shown by the Turkish side here. Number two, sharing of gas income between the two Cypriot community would compel both the parties to see the benefit, cost-benefit analysis of this prolonging the agony and division which the international community wants both the communities to put an end to. Third one, Cyprus agrees to integrate or coordinate with Turkey as far as gas supply chain is concerned. Fourth, direct gas link to Turkey and to the EU, linking to and boosting the Nabucco project, which has been in the hibernation. In other words, traditional hostilities, tensions, suspicions, although do not evaporate, but conciliatory and cooperative framework could be put in place once the leadership here puts on table the options. And I also feel that this is the most competitive option, because laying of pipelines through Greece and through Israel and other parties would cost heavily Cyprus, whereas it will take 10% of the cost of the LNG. Of course, in this scenario, Israel and Greece may feel they are the losers, but Cyprus has a unique opportunity to use its diplomacy and to also bring EU and US influence to maintain stability in the Eastern Mediterranean region, which these two major powers would be looking into. And of course, the final point I would like to make is the ideal solution is new arrangement on the political status of Cyprus, namely reunification on strict legal, political and judicial guarantees, demarcation of exclusive economic zones among Cyprus, Greece and Turkey, and a progressive understanding between Greece, Turkey on the Aegean Sea. Thus, gas can become the game changer and a crucial factor in managing conflicts and contributing to peace, security and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean region, especially in an interdependent world where cooperation is essential. And that's how I see gas becoming a tool to unleash forces of cooperation to the rising challenges in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.